Adding spin to your serve in pickleball is one of the easiest ways to make things more challenging for your opponents. So today, I'm going to take you through 3 different spins that you can use on your serve. Let me tell you, at the recreational level of pickleball, these spins are deadly. So try your best to understand them all so you can start practicing them next time you're on the courts. Helping me today, I have my sister Kennedy. And one thing to keep in mind is that your topspin serve should generally be seen as your default option. Today though, we're going to start off with side spin serves, since these aren't as commonly known, they can give you an extra edge. Later in the video, I'll cover topspin, and I'll show you a few cool tricks to make topspin even more effective. The first serve that we're going to cover is the banana serve, which very few people know how to use. Before we get into that though, I want to show you a few tips that will help with any type of spin. So an important thing to keep in mind is that if you're not coming from a tennis background and you've never used spin before, it can be a little bit tricky to get the hang of. But the idea is, as I'm hitting the ball forward, regardless of the shot, if I move my paddle one direction, I will make the ball spin. So if I was to go like this, that creates topspin. And if I was to cut like this when I hit the ball, that will create side spin. So we're going to go through 3 different serves, and they all are going to be spinning the balls in different ways. But if you haven't ever gotten spin, an easy way to start yourself off is just by tossing the ball to yourself and cutting to the side. As you can see, I got that ball to spin a little bit to the side off the bounce. You can see it's bouncing to the side. So when you put spin on the ball, one, it makes the ball jump the way that you spin it, but it also makes the ball curve the way you spin it. So if I hit top spin, the ball drops quicker because it curves down. If I hit side spin, the ball will curve to the way that I cut. So if I cut this way, it's going to curve like this. If I cut this way, it will curve the opposite direction. Like I said, this all will take practice though. So on the banana serve, the first serve we're covering, I'm curving the ball this way. So not many people use this serve, but it's actually not that hard to get the hang of. You just want to go outward as you're hitting the ball forward. And I call this a banana serve because in tennis, a player named Rafael Nadal uses this shot a lot on his forehand. So what it looks like is this. And when you're on the other side, you can see when I do that, I can actually get a pretty good amount of curve on the ball, which is definitely something that can be tricky to your opponents, especially since not many people know how to use this serve. And to get this curve, you need to make sure that you're making contact with the ball lower, because if I'm higher, I can't really hit the ball while I'm cutting out. And on the banana serve specifically, you probably want to make contact with the ball a little bit more behind you than you normally would. So if on a regular topspin serve, I'm contacting the ball here, like this, on a banana serve, I'm probably going to contact the ball maybe a little bit more back here. So if I show you what that looks like, I'm coming a little bit more from behind me so I can go out, right? So a little bit lower than my normal serve and farther back. I think I made contact with those like right here, and that lets me cut outward. And one of the best ways to practice this to get the hang of it, because you're probably not going to get the hang of this immediately, it's not the most natural spin, is to go on the windscreen and try to see if you can get the ball to jump off to the side. So when I do my banana serve, you can see when I hit it, it jumps off to the right. So the windscreen is a great spot to get feedback that you're getting the right sort of spin. You can see if I hit the ball right with enough spin, it makes the ball jump off to the right. And I can essentially take that same technique to the actual court where I take that spin and try to actually make it in the box. So when I use this serve against an actual opponent, you can see it looks like this. So it's a little bit harder to get spin on this serve versus the screwball, which we're covering next. But if you give it enough of this action, you'll see that I can actually get the ball to curve a little bit, which can definitely throw your opponents off. So 2 of my favorite spots to take the serve are right at my opponent, which is the safer option, or down the middle where I can pull my opponent off the court. If we're serving on the right side, that would be out wide. But on the left side, that's down the middle. So when I go right at my opponent, you can see it looks like this. And what's cool about that serve is they might be expecting it to come to their backhand, but because of the curve, it goes to their forehand. You can really throw people off like that. So depending on your opponent's level, that can be super effective. And when I go down the middle, I can really just get my opponents moving, right? And if they're not that great at moving or they're not expecting a serve that's not to them, that can get them off balance. Why I say the safer option is going right at them though, is because you're minimizing your chances of missing wide. So I would probably go for the right at them version of this serve more often than out wide. But either way, if you're consistent with this serve, it can be a super effective way to get free points and to get worse returns from your opponent. The next serve is pretty much the opposite of a banana, and it is called the screwball. So we're cutting this way instead of cutting this way, and it makes the ball curve the opposite direction too. And when you're on the windscreen, if you're practicing this, you want the ball to jump in the opposite direction. So as I said, this is probably a little bit more natural for most people to get this type of spin. And the windscreen's a great way to get the hang of it if you don't have it yet. So against an actual opponent, you can see when I hit the serve, it's a little bit easier to get the curve, and you can actually see it a little bit more. So can really get the ball to bend on this one if I do it right. And one of the most important things that you need to know to get this serve right is where you're making contact with it. So on our banana serve, we're back here. On our screwball serve, we're in the opposite. So we want to be out in front a lot more to the left so that we can cut to the side. So I'm making contact with the ball right here where a normal serve's over here. So this one's actually more different than the banana serve. And that's honestly what lets me cut though. So you really need to be tossing the ball directly out from your left knee if you're a righty so that you can cut to the side when you hit it. So if you put that all together, you're making contact with the ball more out to your left and you're really cutting. You can get a lot of spin on the screwball serve. As you can see there, I'm literally able to bend the ball around the center line. And while most of that is technical, a lot of your spin will come from having a better paddle that has better grit on the surface. So if you already have a good paddle, you're good. But if not, we just launched our own paddle that has the max level of grit. So if you didn't know, there's actually a limit to how much grit you can have on your paddle. And ours has the highest possible level without being illegal. And what this does is it just gives you more natural spin so that when you're hitting your screwball, you're just going to see more curve. If you're hitting topspin or the banana, you're just going to see more curve. So if you want more out of the technique that you have, highly recommend going checking our paddle out. In terms of where you aim the screwball though, what I like to do is pretty much the opposite of the banana. So I like to go right at my opponents, which is the safer of the two. And I like to go down the middle so I can bend the ball away from my opponent. And when you go right at your opponent, same thing happens. Your opponent might be expecting a forehand, but they get a backhand, which can be really confusing. And if you curve it away from your opponents, you can just get them off balance and potentially, if they're not that good at moving, get a free point. An important thing to keep in mind though is that the screwball serve and the banana serve should be looked at as changeups. So at the highest level, you're probably not going to see that many players using it because the heavy topspin serve is the most effective and the most consistent. So when you're using the screwball and the banana, you want to use them as changeups or deviations to keep your opponents honest from your topspin serve. So it's sort of to trick your opponents. If you keep using these serves repeatedly, they're going to get used to it. So when you go out to play, you should assess if these serves are working. And if they are, throw them in more often. If they're not working, stick to your topspin, which we're about to go over now. It's going to be more consistent and more beneficial against a higher level player. Now guys, I'm going to show you my top 3 tips to get more topspin on your serve. Before I get into that though, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you're enjoying this video. So as a brief overview, to get topspin, all you need to do is come from below the ball and finish above the ball. So topspin serve looks like this. They're super common. If you've been to the courts, I'm sure you've seen players use these. So today I'm going to show you how to get more topspin, not just how to get topspin. So to get more topspin, the obvious answer is to go up more. But how do you make that happen? Well, the first way that you make that happen is by lifting your arm. So lifting with your shoulder. And that's the safe way to get more topspin. The second way is what I call the windshield wiper. This is pretty much what you do on every forehand in tennis. It's not as common or effective in pickleball, but it can be effective on our serve. So as we're lifting our shoulder, you simultaneously want to be lifting your wrist or rotating your wrist up a little bit. You don't want to go all the way over like we do in tennis, but a little bit. If you go too much, you might miss the serve. So we want to do something like this. So I'm finishing a little bit above with my wrist, and that gives me a little bit of a topspin boost. So the last thing to think about after you're already lifting with your shoulder and you're doing a little bit of the windshield wiper motion is just to accelerate and find the right balance of how much up you should be going and how much forward you should be going. So as I mentioned earlier, if I'm going with too much topspin, I'm going to miss-hit the ball and it's going to go in the net. And if I'm not going with enough topspin, there's just not going to be any spin on the ball and I'm not going to get that effect that I want. So what you need to do is come out to the courts and practice this so you find that right level to where you're super consistent with it and you make it in every time and you see that topspin effect. So it's just a practice thing. It doesn't take that long. Come out to the courts. You can literally just serve to yourself. It's one of the only shots you can practice on your own and you can get that feel for the right paddle speed and the right brush. So we call this the brush. You need the right balance of that to get the most possible topspin. And guys, this video is sponsored by playpickleball.com, which is a great place to get tons of information about the sport, coaching, where to play, and a bunch of other cool stuff. And guys, now that you know how to put spin on your serve, watch this video if you want to get the whole strategy of how to win points while you're serving.